Let's dive into the next question. It's also from Reddit. The title is, on average, how many hours a week are you actually working? And so he wrote, my previous call, I was easily doing 55 plus hours a week. It was pretty bad. My wife even talked to me one night and said I was making her a single mother and not seeing the kids as much.
Yikes.
No.
Never want to have that conversation.
I cut it back down to 40 hours pretty radically after that conversation. It was good for all of us, but the church accused me of not working 40 hours a week after that. Ironically, do any of you actually work around 40 hours a week, or are you mostly pulling into the 50 plus range?
All right. If your church is wanting you to work a certain amount of hours per week,
that's a red flag.
I got questions. Yeah, that's a red. Like, we're not in the trading hours for dollars line of work. We're in a knowledge-based, skill experience-based leadership role. So some weeks I might work way more than 40 hours because I visited 4 people in the hospital and somebody called me and their spouse is leaving them, or like whatever, situations are crazy. I mean, you guys know this. There can easily be weeks where you have like 2 days in a row of 3 or 4 hour long conversations with people that are in crisis. And then there's times like in the summertime here, there's times where it's like, all I did was write a sermon and like nobody needed anything that week. Everybody's happy. And the summertime is a little bit less. So I mean, I think that it's seasonal. We've said this before. Like, I'm about to get into a real busy season. Basically from now until like the beginning of June is very busy for me because of kids sports, my coaching, and then church and Easter and all that stuff. So you just have to know though, by the middle of the summer, kind of the dog days of summer, that's going to slow down quite a bit. And so, I think you'd want to more have a conversation with, if your church is asking you about not working 40 hours a week, I would want to maybe gently have a conversation about what's the expectations of my role. What is, if you have a job description, great. Now, if in that job description, when they hired you, it said, we want you to be in the office 40 hours a week, then, I mean, you should have seen that. But if it said, prepare sermons, lead things, the longer you are doing something, the more efficient you can be at it. So like, it takes me less time now to write a sermon than it did when I first started preaching every week. So, I mean, I don't think they're not paying me to spend hours doing something. They're paying me for the expertise and leadership skills that I've developed over these years. And so, it's okay if some weeks it's 45, 48 hours and some weeks it's like 38. Over the course of a year, it's going to definitely average out to more than 40 hours a week for me. But, like during COVID in a small church, I was doing all the yard maintenance. I was like mowing the entire property and like weed whacking and but I didn't have much else to do because we weren't meeting. So I think there should be a lot more flexibility. And I would hope that the leadership of your church realizes that what they're actually paying you to do is they're paying you for your time and expertise, so you don't have to have another income.
Yeah, I'm with you on this, Jeff. Ministry comes and goes in seasons. It is so difficult to pinpoint. This is my weekly schedule every single week. I try to have a rhythm for sure, for sermon prep and sermon writing, but outside of that, things change. Meetings happen, crises happen. I had a full-time employee recently send me their schedule for like 3 months, and it was like detailed to the hour. And I just like it was a great effort, but I just gently reminded them that, man, I would say this is good for this week, but just know this might change next week, because being in full-time vocational ministry, you're not able to predict what's going to pop up and what you're going to need to be at. We have a general rule of thumb at Lakeview. This comes from the school of Doug Fields. We ask none of our employees be out more than 3 nights a week. So to limit ministry activities to 3 nights a week or less, that way your family does get you the bulk of the week when it comes to nighttime activities.
Gosh, and even 3 nights a week now, like at this stage of life, feels like a lot.
I'm talking
Pastor Andrew heard this and thought, that's crazy. I need to be at a ball game,
Right.
But now it's like 3 nights. If someone was like, Andrew, we need you to be out of the house 3 nights a week, I'd be like, ooh, I don't know.
Well, for example, my youth pastor, he does a high school Bible study on Sunday night. He plays church softball on Tuesday night, which I count as a night out, because that's time where he's not with his wife. And then he has youth group Wednesday night. So he knows for the next few weeks, those are his 3 nights out. And so I've asked him not to take any more nights out per week. And if then to take something else off.
He's then not expected to be in like the next morning early, right?
We don't have office hours, so
Yeah,
he's
so
able
there you
to have freedom of schedule when it comes to that kind of stuff. But also, I'm reading this again, and if this is the way your spouse is feeling, you need to address this right now. Like, this has to be an immediate conversation with your spouse, with your elders, with your leadership team, because your marriage is priority number one right now.
If the church is feeling frustrated at you and your wife is feeling frustrated at you, the church can be frustrated.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yes.
If you pull the plug and leave the church, in 6 weeks, a committee will be formed, and in 3 months, they'll have a dozen resumes.
Right.
If you lose your family, it's, a decade, and maybe you're watching somebody else walk your baby girl down the aisle.
Ouch.
Don't
Bro,
even.
you just said it.
But
that hurt.
But that's
Bro doesn't even have
it's
girls.
true.
Bro doesn't have a girl.
Yeah, you got me on that one, dude.
Shut your mouth,
Dang.
bro. I got 2 of them. You be quiet. You don't know. All right.
Four.
I thought you were talking about the poster, and I was like, oh no, did I mess something up? But
No, you.
but no, this is.
Hey,
There's a whole lot at stake.
Yeah.
And a whole lot less at church than you think is at stake.
Wow.
and if you are trying to find 40 hours of things in your slow season, you're just burning yourself out. You are sitting at the church burning yourself out. And I would just gently remind these people in the church accusing you, you're on call 24/7 as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about, I'm not putting in the hours. I'm on call at 3 a.m. when so-and-so from the church, his son got drunk and hit a light pole downtown, and now I got to go down. Like, you're on call for that. So, and then also, it's what Jeff said too. It's to be able to call an audible. Like, that's part of what you do. Yesterday, in our church, in our worship service, this has not happened, but at the end of service, we lost full control of our audio. Like, we could not get anything on. And the whole worship team they're like, what do we do? What do we do? Our Dan, the pastor, he was out, so I'm kind of the pastor up on deck, right? So I said, all right, listen, everybody knows the doxology. Go on stage. We're going to end this old school. And you know what? We went up there and we kind of talked through it. We did the doxology and we did some announcements, and actually it landed. But here's the thing. That's what you're paid to be there for, to be able to navigate small crisis, big crisis. It's not for how many hours you're giving. It's very, I learned this in the secular world with my father. So let me kind of translate this a little bit. My dad cut grass for a living growing up. When we first started, he had these lawnmowers. I don't know if you remember them. They're called MTDs, belly deck, slow, just personal lawnmower. It would take us an hour and a half to cut a yard. He'd make $55. Then he went and bought a better lawnmower, faster lawnmower. He could cut a lot more. We cut the same yard in 45 minutes. Guess what he made? The same money, because his skill set, his ability, everything increased. And a couple of his customers were like, you're not here near as long as you used to be. He goes, but your yard looks better.
Yeah.
So why are you complaining? So it's not just in the pastor world. This is everywhere.
Well, but that there are. Let's just talk preaching. There are some texts that you'll open your commentary, you'll open your scripture, and that sermon will write itself in 3 or 4 hours. You're like, oh, like that was work.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That felt like I was doing my devos and the whole thing was done. And I had 3 points in a poem. Now, I don't do 3 points, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there are some sermons that you look down like, oh, that thing wrote itself. That
And then
was
you open
great.
up the text and it says, pay your pastor well. And it's really awkward.
And
And
then
you're
you
like,
have-
this is going to take hours
And
to navigate.
And then you have some sermons that legitimately take 17, 18 hours to write.
Yeah.
That's true.
And your paycheck is the same for both weeks.
Right.
So you're like everybody has said, we are not in the business of trading time for money.
I'm also wondering, how are you doing with your days off? Are you in any kind of sabbatic rhythm? I know at Lakeview, we encourage our staff, hey, you get the weekend off every 7 weeks. Make sure you're taking that and you're spending time with your family, your spouses, etc. So this needs to be a staff conversation as well. We tried to build this into our staff meetings. We ask about spiritual health. We ask about your physical health. Are you taking your time, or are you spending that time you need with your family? So hopefully, as a pastor, you're pouring into your staff in this area too, and encouraging them to actively be present for your family. And if that needs to be a conversation with leadership, then have that conversation. I think they're going to respect that. It might be difficult at first, but I think they will respect that.
I do wonder if you were to, like, you posted this on Reddit. we need to do a better job of reminding people. We have a Facebook group called Practically Pastoring. Just find it, and there, maybe there are things that you are doing in your schedule that are taking too long that someone else has already figured out a more efficient way.
Like counting
and
people.
that just
Ouch.
Yeah, but Jeff, nobody else knows if my kid is in the office watching on YouTube, and then I'm like, well, that counts as an online viewer,
Got
and
it.
he's in person here on campus.
1.5.
So I
Double
so,
count.
so sometimes I got to get that counting in.
Nice. I see.
So I mean, yeah, like this, like what you're doing is exactly what you should be doing. It's like, hey, okay, it takes me 3 hours to do my receipts. Well, there has to be a more efficient way than to take 3 hours each week. Or, if you're a youth
How much
pastor-
money are you spending? 3 hours a week,
Bro,
for
Frank
receipts?
knows how to use the church card.
Dang,
Yeah, I know he's just
Frank's paying for lunch today.
yeah. There might be something in your ministry that can be expedited. Like maybe it's taken you. I don't know. I didn't tell what role this person was. If he was a youth pastor, a lead pastor, or what he was doing. But I would say if you're like a lead pastor, there's a book called 8 Hours or Less. Maybe you're spending 35 hours on writing sermons each week, and that is eating up so much of your week that's why you're pushing another 20 hours in pastor visits. That's Rivian right there. There's a lot of things you could do to probably expedite your stuff, but as people have said, man, your family's a priority. I love the quote from Andrew. If your wife is going to get angry, and if your church is going to get angry,
That was Jeff.
oh, let the church be angry. Like so be it. Sorry. But anyways, yeah, I would even like try to whoever these people are at your church who are like questioning your hours, I would even like kind of explain to them like, hey, this is what my 40 hours look. This is what my time looks like. But man, like, try to cut that culture out.
I do want to speak from experience here because we had a season where it was very, very difficult at Lakeview, and we had some leadership in place that I don't know was all that healthy, and they did go down this road. We actually had to install certain apps on our phones and log every hour. And they asked us to turn on location services so they could track where we were. It was very
red
unhealthy.
Flags
It was probably
on red flags.
It was probably the unhealthiest season of ministry I've ever been a part of, and I had to have some very, very difficult conversations with my leadership team. I did let the staff know that I was going to go to bat for them because all of us as a staff were like freaked out. Like, this is the weirdest thing. We did have difficult conversations. There were certain elders that ended up resigning after the fact. So I don't know if it's going down that road, but be very, very careful because it could get to that point.
But here's the thing. When Tim's talking about this, I think back to a season at the first church I served at where, so that season at Lakeview happened right after a pastoral failure. The season where
it was a mess.
We had to fill out bubble charts and
I've had to do it at two different churches.
Yeah, we just the time tracking and the where are you, that happened right
Where
after.
are you? Yeah.
Yes, it was about that same era. But right after a pastor failed, and then it was like after the pastor failed, there was too much rope, and he hung himself with it. And so then the elders were like, oh, let's suck up as much control as possible and go from being kind of hands off to way too hands on. Sometimes you are in a season where the church leadership is responding, and unfortunately, not many of our elders have taken ecclesiology classes.
Or maybe they're reacting.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
responding.
It is a reaction
Ooh, good one.
to what has happened in the church.
Pendulum swing.
Yes. And so chances are it's for a season and it won't last. So if you're like, ooh, I don't know how long I can deal with this, chances are you just need to outlast those elders. But it also might be time to pull the plug and say, do you know what? It's for the sake of my family, this isn't healthy and it's time to go.